Go ahead.
No, you,
I mean,
Hi, everyone. We're just waiting to get a quorum. We will come back on once we have a quorum.
people.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Act 378 Subcommittee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Brenton, would you mind calling roll?
Sure. Ms. Banks,
Present.
Ms. Hagan, Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Piontek, Ms. Palazola,
Here.
Ms. Stewart, Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Ms. Womack,
Here.
and Ms. Gonzalez.
Here.
Great. So you have 5 and quorum.
Thank you, Brenton. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all of a few rules. For committee members and members of the public attending in person, please raise your hand to speak and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking. To help the meeting run smoothly, please keep side conversations to a minimum and comments related to the topics we're discussing. For those committee members who are attending virtually, remember you must be on camera and have your first and last name showing to be counted towards a quorum. Please keep your microphones muted unless called upon by the chair. Electronically raise your hand to request to speak and wait to be called on by the chair. For attendees, electronically raise your hand to request to speak. Once recognized by the chair, your microphone will be turned on. After speaking, the microphone will be returned to mute. Also, the Q&A is only to be used by those needing an ADA accommodation to participate in the meeting. Public comment will not be accepted via the Q&A except for those individuals who requested the accommodation. As for order, committee members in person and virtually will be asked to speak first. Public members in person will then be called on, followed by public participating virtually who have their hands raised. Comments and Q&A will be addressed last. As with all hybrid meetings, it can be difficult to keep track of those wanting to speak in person and virtually. Please be patient. All comments and questions from committee members and public may be limited to 3 minutes or less should we run into time constraints. So please keep that in mind. Also, comments about the person's character will not be allowed. Finally, members of the public will have the opportunity to provide public comment before each vote and during designated public comment periods. The chair may also use their discretion to determine if comments will be accepted outside of those times. Any questions? Okay. So next item on our agenda is the approval of the April meeting summary. Everyone should have reviewed the October meeting summary. It's April meeting summary.
Yep, sorry.
Which was attached to the agenda. You received via email. There's also a copy in the committee packet. It's also online, right? Is it linked online, Brenton?
It is linked online and
On the
it is
website.
also up on the screen.
Okay. So I need a motion to adopt the October meeting summary.
I motion to adopt the summary.
Okay, we have a motion by Nicole Banks.
Second, Eric.
Eric, you seconded?
Yes.
We have a second by Eric Taylor. Is there any discussion?
We have a hand raised, Ms. Gina Lewis.
Okay, Ms. Lewis?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Pam?
I just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware that I was accompanying Dr. Foster in place of Dr. Subcommittee today. My name is Gina Lewis, OBH.
Thank you.
Okay. We can move you over to panelist, Ms. Lewis.
Thank you. I'll click that now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other public comment on the April meeting summary? Okay. Based on the updated public meetings law, we will now do a roll call vote. Brenton, please call the roll.
All right, so a yay is to approve the April meeting summary, a nay is to not approve. Ms. Banks,
Yay.
Ms. Hagan, Ms. Nguyen, Mr. Piontek, Ms. Stewart, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Womack,
Yay.
and Ms. Gonzalez.
Yay.
4 yays, 0 nays, motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Brenton. The motion to accept the April meeting summary has passed by a vote of 4-0. Now we'll move on to the SPA's report. Kelly Monroe with the ARC of Louisiana is here to report out on this program.
Okay. Everybody has a copy of the report. I see it's on there. Okay, great. So, this is the last report for, last fiscal year. We did use all of the funds, but let's go through the beginning. This quarter, we were able to serve, 62 people. We had, a couple of situations where we had some leftover money. And we were able to take some people off the waiting list by buying some home modifications and some vehicle modifications. So that's where that came from. And so if you look below, it changed the demographics a little bit. So there were 17 people who were identified as African American and 24 Caucasian and 1 person who was Hispanic who received the services. Of those, 28 of them were male and 14 of them were female, and changed the range of age from 31 years of age to 92. If you turn the page, you'll see that regions 1, 7, and 9 is where the majority of the people reside. But so in region 1, there were 13 people who received the services there. Region 2 was 10, region 3 was 5, region 4 was 4, region 5 is 4, region 6 is 2, region 7 is 12, region 8 is 0, and region 9 is 12. So that was a total of 62. If you turn the page, all 62 people received support coordination. 39 of them received personal care assistance. 3 of them received either rental or utility assistance. 37, this was like the big hike, was the 37 people received either a medical stipend or equipment, some type of equipment. And then, vehicle modifications and home modifications, there were 9 of those people. So as I said, we went a little bit over on this contract, in direct services that we had allocated, but we did not use all the money, allocated for, benefits and, mileage. And so we purchased another home modification. So that's why you'll see the overage right there. But at the end of the day, we spent the complete, contract, went over a little bit, but technically not really when you look at the whole, contract. So we turn the page, we have right now 98 people who are on the waiting list. And most of those people are gonna reside in regions 1 and 2. And so if you look at the chart, you'll see that, regions 1, there were 23 people waiting. Region 2, there's 22. Region 3, there's 9. Region 4, there's 15. Region 5, there's 2. Region 6 is 2. Region 7 is 6. Region 8 is 3. And Region 9 is 16. And so it's gone up just really by 2 people this last quarter. It was 96 last quarter, and now it's 98. And then the demographics of those people are on the next page. So 40 of those people are African American, 43 are Caucasian, 1 is Hispanic, 1 is Caucasian Asian, and there are 10 people who decided not to disclose. And so of those people, 40 of them were male and 56 are female. And that's it. On the next page is the services that they're requesting. So if we were to serve all of these people, it would roughly be about $2.8 million. I don't know what that is in state general funds. I think it's probably somewhere around 700,000, but I really don't know because some people say it's 68%, some people that you get the federal match, and some people say 65. So anyway, we'll leave that up to OAS to decide. But below is something that you guys had asked for, I think in the second quarter, where you asked, were people receiving other services and had they applied for other services? So that's what you'll see in here. That, there are 5 people currently receiving LTPCS, 8 people receiving CCW, 6 people in the NOW, 16 people receiving THSCI. One,
say it out what that is?
oh yeah, traumatic head and spinal cord injury. 1 person in the residential options waiver. And then 1 person who receives the supports waiver or the PACE program. I do not know what PACE stands for.
Programs all inclusive something.
I think we looked it up last meeting and I don't.
Yeah. It's a good service though.
Yes.
It's like a day program that has all the wraparound services in one place.
For the aging.
population.
Yeah, for the aging
And it's
population.
only in certain zip codes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Very good.
program for all-inclusive care for the elderly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. Okay, so, and so there are, 36 of them are receiving on the waiting list are receiving other services. So that's it. Does anybody have any questions? I know that was super fast, but. Go ahead.
Go.
Okay, so if we go back to, I'm guessing like the first page where you told us like all of the breakdown of the reasons and who are receiving them.
Uh-huh.
So I see region 8 doesn't have anybody on there.
Yeah.
They ain't serving nobody. Okay, but then they have people on the wait list. Okay, what's that about?
Well, the person who was on Region 8 passed away. We had a couple of people that passed away. They were both happened to be in Region 8. But the waiting list is first come, first serve as of right now. And so the next 2 people that came up off the waiting list were not people in that region. So if you see, well, you won't see, but in the regions, I have like what it was last quarter and what it is now.
Mhm.
And so actually there was nobody in Region 8 last quarter. So it must have been the quarter before that when they passed away. So, yeah, but then there was 0 last quarter in Region 4, and then there's 4 this time. So it just fluctuates, it just changes.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is first come, first serve.
And you said to get all of the people service upon the waiting list, that we need two.
I think it's 2.8 million roughly. If we look at the averages of what we've been spending for those services, it'd be roughly about 2.8 million, might be less, who knows?
And how much you guys currently get for it?
The full contract,
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look and see what the whole thing is. I know the breakdown for this piece was the,
893.
yes.
They all have under a million, right under.
Yeah. Any more questions about,
I
okay,
had a question, just for my notes, you had mentioned y'all went over budget, you were able to pull from salaries, mileage, benefits, whatever you had left over, which is great. You said you were able to use that for, was it some home modification?
yeah, with some home modifications.
Great.
And they actually, that's all they needed was the home modification, so they're actually off the waiting list now, so.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Do we have any more questions for Kelly before we move on? Lauren?
I'm sorry. What is? What I left.
Okay, next we'll be moving on to our behavioral health reports. We have Dr. Dana Foster and also Miss Gina Lewis.
Good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So first we'll look at consumer care resources. As you can see there, everybody is pretty much where they needed to be at this point in the fiscal year, with the exception of a few LGEs. But I'd like to note that the June invoices and data and information hadn't come in yet at the time of our requesting this from the LGEs. If you can look and see that capital area had 94% expended, but we did talk to them about their plans to have the remaining funds expended by the end of June. You'll see Northeast Delta is at 98%, which I think is pretty good considering. I would like to note that Florida Parishes was on a corrective action plan, but they're at 97%. So it seems like their plans to work around the barriers to getting the money expended is working. And then I just also want to note that Jefferson Parish, you see them at 85%, but they did add to their budget. And I think that if they hadn't added to their budget, they would have met that 100% indicator. Are there any questions about the consumer care resources tab?
So the 60,000 was what was added?
To
Correct.
Jefferson Parish?
Okay. Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. Any more questions about that?
Eric?
What was that added for what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
He asked what was the 60,000 added for?
Oh, let me check and look to see what they note that they added for that.
I think it says respite services.
Yeah, it says respite services. And they note that their June invoices are due July 9th. And typically we anticipate always getting the final numbers from them before the new fiscal year Q1 reports are due. But they noted that they added that for respite.
Nicole?
I do realize that, we don't get these reports until, after the meeting. But when you guys do come to the meeting, if there is some kind of like discrepancy where maybe they haven't reached 100%, but July 9th, that was, I guess, last week or so. Is there a way that y'all can still give us an update? I'm not saying like on a report wise, but just like if you know that they've reached their goal and they have something new that's not up on here that they've reported, is that possible that we can do that so we can kind of fill that gap that we've always been missing?
I can reach out to the LGEs and get that information, and then I can, if it's okay, I can share that with Brenton. Is that all right, Brenton? If I can share it with you, and then you can share it with the rest of the council members?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I can reach
Just
out.
more to that, I was gonna explain. So October is always the meeting that you're gonna get the final data of everything that was spent, how much they utilized, what services they utilized. Because we don't have a way of getting that information, but I think the general goal or the general target that OCDD and OBH have for consumer care resources or for the individual family support program is that 95% expenditure rate.
Yeah.
So as the subcommittee, y'all can monitor if you see those percentages, if they're super low at this point, you know, if someone was less than 50% and we know the year is closed out. I doubt those June invoices are really gonna make a big difference.
Right.
So it's those kind of things that you're looking at, whenever you're looking at these reports.
And the other thing, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
When we do get the information, if it is lower than the 95%, then we do reach out to the LGs and we talk about the plans. And if there's a corrective action plan that needs to be put in place, we do let them know that at the time. These numbers here seem to be pretty close to our performance indicator threshold, so we didn't really see that there were any glaring significant needs to get anybody put on a corrective action plan. And as I noted, Florida Parishes was, but their plan that they shared with us has been working, and I think it's a success because they're at 97% at this point.
And in regards to Jefferson Parish, they're at 85%, but that's because they've added more funding. So
Yeah.
if you look at it, their budget is almost double what anybody else is. So they've expended more. So like that, to me, that gives me, comfort to know that they're, trying to meet those needs and putting the funding there to meet those needs.
And we also look at, past quarters, the information we get from the LGEs. And I feel like I'm pretty positive that Jefferson Parish would have expended. They don't have problems ever expending the money that they put aside for these things. If they hadn't added more to their budget, I'm sure they would have reached the 100%. That's why I didn't feel a reason to put them on a corrective action plan because of that. So we're gonna move on to flexible family fund. Similarly to the consumer care resources, everybody was on track to meet the performance indicators. You'll see that North Louisiana was at 87%. We did reach out to them and asked them about what was going on there. And we were advised that there were some families lined up, but the time ran out before the fiscal year end. And so their plan is to work with those families to get everything set up so that they can be first for fiscal year 25. And so they want to have them ready to go by the beginning of this the fiscal year that we in right now. Does anybody have any questions about that?
So where does the money go that they did not use?
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy.
Lauren?
Where does the money go that they did not utilize?
Where does the balance?
Oh, okay, wait, so they still have time to spend that money, correct?
So
Or where they're gonna wait and that money is gonna roll over to next year?
it can, yes, ma'am. They have plans to work with those families that were on the wait list that they weren't able to get the stuff implemented and expended at the end of fiscal year 24.
And that just seems a problem to me. That all those families were waiting for services. Is that alarming to anyone else?
Yeah, you're saying they were waiting for services and they had the money sitting there, that's what you're saying? Okay.
And to me, when it's sounding like they just didn't get it to them. That's how they made.
I remember us having a discussion, I don't remember, time flies, but several years ago about this issue with flexible family funds. And while it seems like, most of the LGs, they've spent it all. So they've had their number of slots filled for the majority of the year. I can remember a conversation several years ago where there sometimes can be issues, maybe it was like during COVID or something, where there's issues of them filling slots and like the process, they have to make an offer, they have to give time for the people to respond, and sometimes that overlaps. So if you send an offer in April and if nobody, that person doesn't respond, then by the time you send out your offer to the next person, then you've got a few months. So we did have conversation about them, setting it up to where in advance, so you don't have that type of wait time. So am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Or my age for memory, but, so I mean, maybe just North Louisiana Human Service District, maybe they could do a little better job of thinking about that timeline to be able to get it filled, but it's not as concerning to me because 87% is, I mean, it could do better, but it's not alarming.
The only thing,
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes, Lauren?
the only thing that concerns me is this was one of the things that we were actively advocating for with, the Senate, and the fact that we're not, I guess, is that, do y'all know what I'm saying? Like them,
Expediting the funds in a timely fashion.
yeah. And then we're asking for more money. I mean, that was one of our top priorities. And on top of that, trying to find people that would even testify to the flexible family funds, because that's personal. I mean, in my own region, listening to some of those stories, people are judgmental about one parent needs to use it to get her kid chicken nuggets because get a textural issue, and that's all the child would eat. And so, I mean, you think of like a senator listening to that is going to be like, oh my God, you need to like just get your kid over eating chicken nuggets. But you don't live that parent's life. Like, you don't know for an autistic child,
That's all.
you may have to hospitalize them because they won't eat. And so that, I find that this issue, and I don't know that there's a solution to it. But these are some things I think maybe we need to think about when we choose our advocacy. What things we can bring to the table, and are we going to have enough testimony and stories? And if not, if there's a way to get more data that's not HIPAA sensitive, like a report of, okay, this is the money, just objectively by the numbers, this is the money, this is what it's used for. These are what, this percentage is used for rent, this percentage is used for extracurriculars, this percentage, if we can't get the testimony that we need for those issues. Just because I know our priorities, there's so many good things too coming up, that we're not able to advocate for. That's just my thoughts on that.
So, okay.
Well,
Thank
just
you.
to kind of piggyback off what you just said, Lauren, I'm not sure we would even be able to get that data just because with flexible family fund, it's just like that stipend that they get every month. And so I don't think that the LGEs track what they use that money for because it's flexible. It allows the family to use it for whatever they need, like the chicken nugget situation. So I'm not sure if we would be able to capture specific data like that, like if they were using it for rent. I mean, we could capture like, okay, what's a variety of things that families use this money for, but I don't know if we would be able to get specifics.
We have Kelly and then Eric and.
I'll be really quick. I would just be really cautious in doing that, because once you start doing that, then people start judging what you're using the money for. And then they'll start having some expectations put on it. And so the flexible family funds are just that. They're very flexible for the family to be able to use whatever they want to. And so I would caution from doing that and collecting data on it. But all you OCDD people, close your ears. All the LDH people, but you know what I mean? Once you start doing that, they start having some expectations.
That's why it's so hard to find people to testify, because like, well, so-and-so gets that money, well, you can't help me pay my, would you on blast say what you're getting from people where that, like, and Eric and I were talking as people with disabilities, we're already afraid sometimes to advocate because you are scared to lose what you have.
Yeah,
Just
just
before-
choose wisely who you ask, those people who are, paying for like modifications to a vehicle, that would be a good one. Or people who are using it for medications that aren't covered, that would be a good person to ask. Just be cautious.
And just to be clear, this is flexible family funds and it's for behavioral health. It's not
That's
the flexible family funds for OCDD, which will be next. So this is a different population and it's flexible family funds, which is a specific dollar amount families get each month once that child or adolescent is approved. It's not like the consumer care resources in behavioral health or the individual family support that's in DD, where you have to petition to request for a specific thing. That's two. So this is behavioral health, and it's a monthly stipend for the families as they come up on the list. So that's what we're talking about right now.
Sorry, Bambi.
It took me about 6 or 7 years
Yeah.
I was just responding to it.
to figure this out, but yes, I have learned that.
I
So
would still be cautious.
yeah, still because
Yeah.
all your points are valid that you said. I just wanted to clarify that that's what we're talking about. So Eric, you good? Okay, thank you, Eric. And then we have
Mimi Webb, that's how we've been North Louisiana. Situation with us is our wait list moves pretty fast, actually. We had like a whopping 1 person on the wait list last session. So we had to get someone who actually is used to actually utilizing that to testify to explain what she uses it for and why it's valuable. Our region actually does a pretty good job of keeping everything flowing with that respect. I think we have like a total of 3 right now. So as the slots come available, they're getting them in there. It's just a matter of getting candidates lined out for that. Just to put it in perspective, historically speaking, why that actually might look kind of low on as far as like that, but they have to be waiting. Well, they do, but like my son rolled off in March. So, his last game I think was like the April, and then after that, they would reach out to fill the slots and all of that. And then the process would get kicked in. So it kind of moves pretty quickly in our region. So it was really hard to find testimony, for example.
Well, thank you for being here to explain that. That helps.
Just to clarify,
No, it helps.
we didn't have like this huge wait list of people like that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah, it looked funny on paper because it came close to the end of the school year. This, for example. Thank you.
She's trying to turn her camera on. I need to switch to the camera.
thank you, Mimi. Did
We're
we?
gonna switch her over.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, she's trying to.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions? Is that the end of your report, Dr. Foster?
Yes, thank you.
Supported living, there's a tab for supported living.
Okay, supported living. Now we do OBH, supported living.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's only 2 notable lower numbers with 77% is capital area, but they did share with us that their behavioral health consumer run drop-in center has all the plans to expend the remaining money, by the end of fiscal year 2024. And that was supposed to be done by I believe July, similarly around maybe around this time. And then also Central Louisiana was at 90%. But that they had not received any of their June invoices at the time that we requested this information from them. But they do anticipate having expended all the money. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, that's it for me.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. Next, we're going to be moving on to the Office for Citizens with Developmental Disabilities report. Tanya Murphy is here to present. Tanya.
Hey, everybody. I'm here in person. I'm not on the Zoom this time. Thought I'd come in and see everybody's bright, shiny faces. Okay, so my report always sounds to me quite similar to an OBH and depends on who goes first, but I just also want to remind that when we send out this request for information to the LGEs, The deadline that we give them is before the actual end of Q4. So it doesn't show all of the expenses for Q4. But like Brenton was saying, in October, when we have our meeting, then you get your actual final expenditures. So we'll start with individual and family support, Q4. Even though they still have most of the June invoices to come in, most of the LGEs are spending quite up at least 80%, right? Everybody is above 80%, which is outstanding. The total for the statewide is 89%, and everybody will be spending the required 95% is my outlook on what's going to happen. Let's see if we have any comments from the LGEs. There was some shifting of money, like capital area moved $258 from their individual and family support budget over to the flexible family fund budget because they had one month that looked like they were short. So, just little shifting of money, but it really doesn't change the total amount spent. Otherwise, most of the LGs are just saying, remember, we don't have all of our June invoices yet.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about individual and family support? All right, flexible family fund. So the only LGE that I noted was an issue was Northwest Louisiana Human Services District with 97%. And so I did want to talk to you guys a little bit about flexible family fund since you guys were talking about it. When I used to do the flexible family fund, what we would do is look at the waiting list and the active who was receiving. Okay, this person's going to be turning 18 in August. So then we would take maybe the top 5 people on the waiting list and mail out, your name is coming up, and you would try to determine those 5 people, are you eligible? And cross your fingers, not all 5 are eligible, because then you're going to have 4 people, that don't have a slot. But once you determine their eligibility, you just have to say, okay, you're eligible, but we have to wait for a slot now. So you don't want to do too many, but you don't want to do not enough.
Yeah.
It's a very, very right on the razor's edge kind of game that you play. But you do try to anticipate out. And then what if you mail out all 5 and none of them are eligible, or they don't respond? And now you have a couple of months where you're not spending your $258. Some of the LGEs will date back. So like, whatever date they mailed out, you've got a slot. Once they determine eligibility, if that takes a month, then you're going to get 2 months worth just to make sure they spend that $258 every month. So it's a very difficult game to make sure that you're spending 100% of that money. But you see most of the LGs are incredibly talented at it.
Okay.
Lauren, you were asking what happens to the money that isn't spent. And I just kind of wanted to speak to that a little bit. This state general fund amount of money is not given to the LGEs like a big check. Here's all your money. So they don't spend it. They just have this extra money. They bill as it's spent, and then the money comes to them. So if they don't spend it, it didn't get spent, and it just remains with the state. So the LGEs don't get extra because they didn't spend, if that helps.
Yes, that does.
Okay. But with flexible family fund, I know that with Region 7, that's where I used to work, and I talked to them a little bit about it, and that's exactly what happened is they've mailed out offers and they're trying to get these slots filled, but it just didn't work. Exactly. So they're continuing to work on it, and that's actually the comment that they put. We currently have 5 vacancies in the flexible family fund, and we're screening individuals, so they're working to get them filled. Questions about flexible family fund? All right. Act 73. This is where we look at, did the LGE spend 9% of their state general fund on a combination of IFS, FFF? So the first thing we do is find out how much state general funds they got. Then we look at what is 9% of that. And then we look at how much did each LGE budget towards these 2 programs. And then the next column is how much have they spent? And then the final column says this is the percentage of the 9% that they've spent. So we're looking for 100%. You'll note that some of the LGEs put more than their required 9% towards the program. So they've already spent beyond what's expected. But it is anticipated that all 10 LGEs they've all budgeted enough, and they are almost there with expended. And I have no doubt that in October, when I bring the report, they'll have met the goal. And that's it for me. Unless there's questions.
Do you have any questions for Tanya? Come on, y'all, give her some questions.
I mean, what is
That's because you came in person.
right? I just scared, just scared. Kidding. I'm just happy to explain absolutely anything. I've been doing this for a long time, and
No, that made sense. That made pretty much answer my question.
I don't have questions, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Metropolitan and Acadiana, Imperial Calcasieu, Central Louisiana, Northwest Louisiana, Northeast, because they are not just sticking to that 9%. And they have historically, most of those have historically, even before Act 3078 was passed, always put more money into those DD programs than others. So just shout out to them and thank them for prioritizing the DD community in those areas.
And in October, just to be sure, we're going to be getting those expanded reports from OCDD, like that has the breakdown, is that correct, of the expenditures?
I have to refresh my memory.
can we talk more? That's what I'd like to know is like specifically, what is it that you guys want to see?
I'm thinking about that, that's by category?
Yeah, you know, the big FFF and IFS, like.
Yeah, I mean,
what's
we always
what.
give you, this is how many contracts, this is what was expended, this is what was budgeted, this is where the money was.
By each
spent.
area,
By each area.
yeah,
we
and that's
do
the
that.
October meeting, right?
That's always the October meeting.
Okay, so my point of saying that is to the committee members and to the public, those are posted online, how many weeks ahead?
So it's usually the week people.
Okay, so like to come and have a meaningful meeting, you can't look at it for the first time at this meeting.
Yeah.
Like that has to be looked at and your questions in order for us to be able to really kind of dig into that, so.
And that's a good point because the last 2 or 3 years, that report has been dragged on to January and even the April meeting sometimes. And it really bogs you down from addressing needs within that quarter because you're still talking about last year. And I think a lot of that just has to do with folks not looking at that document ahead of time, not coming prepared with questions. I mean, it likely won't be me in October that sends it to you, it'll be whoever takes over this committee. But that person or myself can still explain some of this information to you. If you do have questions when those reports come in, that may help you better understand what you're looking at. Because it is a very massive report. Tanya sends us lots of data about IFS, then we try to put it in a nice little neat package, but it still ends up being a very big report with a lot of information.
So if someone is very pushy, someone who is not Brenton and really is pushy about you looking at those reports, please do it. It might be me, I could be pushy.
Yeah. So do you know the date that they're posted, Dan?
I think Brent said like a week, at least.
Actually, so 2 weeks before this committee meets is whenever the state agencies send the reports that you're looking at now. And so that would be around the time that I would get this annual data. And then the week after that, usually by like midweek, so a week before we meet, the Wednesday before, everything will be up online and sent to the committee for review.
Okay, would staff send like maybe a reminder or something for us to get online
Well, he sent it to us.
Yeah, if you're on the committee, you get an email from me
Right,
that
okay.
says, and usually the October meeting, I say, read this.
Okay.
It's a
So
lot.
you're gonna send it to, okay.
Yes.
Baby's just reminding y'all to read y'all's emails
Yeah, that's what she doing.
in a nice way.
She just putting that.
Don't just ignore Brenton's emails. No one ever does that. No one would ever do that. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions for Tanya for OCDD, we'll move on to, announcements and public comment.
Do we have any public comment?
No public.
The only announcements that we have are the after lunch, which lunch is probably not here yet because we're finishing this up quite early. The next committee that will meet is self-determination at 1 o'clock. It will be in this room for those of you that are in person. If you're online, if you have registered, you should have a Zoom link for that. So that's 1 p.m., 3 p.m. is going to be education and employment. And then same room tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. for the full council meeting.
Okay, does anyone on the committee have any other announcements to make?
Looks like Tony has his hand raised.
Tony? Unmute yourself, Tony.
What is the problem here?
We can hear you, Tony.
You know.
Oh, anyway. Remember Mrs. Christy Curtis?
Yes.
I was added, I'm her assistant with all the council stuff with her. And she just put a brand new advertiser with my picture. And she does these advertisings or advertisements. So I just got it like a second ago. And this must not have been a new thing. So I added you, Mrs. Ebb, to look into it. So I just got it before this started from her. So take a look at the email and you can share it with the staff. So I just got it. So and of the other thing, I've been a Louisiana Developmental Disabilities, sorry. Our National Down Syndrome Congress Convention is now being, is now happening in this month. It's in Phoenix, if y'all knew.
Are you going, Tony?
Sadly, no.
Okay.
But any of the council staff, Mrs. Ebb and all the staff here, next time it's in Dallas, Texas, in 25. But to go on the website, oh gosh, I know this like the back of my hand.
That's the National Down Syndrome Association Conference?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. So it's in Dallas, Texas in 25 next year. But immediately do it as soon as possible because registration happens so quickly. And for our professionals here, you do it a month before. Because I like to see Mrs. Ebony, most of the staff on here can make it. It just so happens that you just have to do it right away.
Thank you, Tony. And I'm glad that Christy has brought you on her team. And I'm glad y'all are in my region. So that's good.
Yes, because
Congratulations.
registration is flying out the window. That's what it's like every year. And so that's
Well, thank you.
exceptionally hard.
Thanks for that update.
You're welcome.
Any other announcements? Okay, so, I hereby adjourn this meeting at 11:20.
And we will do another at 1.
At 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
All right, thank